Welcome. Today I'll be presenting to you Shopware in a nutshell, which is me trying to write a plugin for Shopware 6 and showing you around how things work and how we do stuff. But first, a bit about me. I'm Christian. I'm working at Shopware for the last 4 years, and I'm currently in a role of a developer experience expert, which means I'm the guy who reviews documentation pull requests, things about libraries that we provide for you to interface with Shopware and help you out on technical questions if you're trying to extend Shopware. But without further ado, as you already see, this is my screen. Let's just clear it for a moment. And as I said, we want to get started writing a plugin for Shopware. For that, I'm using a tool that's called Shopware Docker. The command for that is swdc. And this is just a good starting point for orchestrating a Docker Compose setup to run several versions and several instances of Shopware in parallel with some nice extra tooling like an adminer instance to configure the database. The products itself can be found on GitHub under just Shopware Docker. Shopware Docker. Shine. So this guy is a colleague of mine. He's very prolific open source contributor, and he built this tool set which is just a collection of shell scripts to manage and create a Docker Compose on the fly and to run things there. So let's get back and let's start building a Shopware instance anew. So we're first of all, if you just have swdc and you hit return, you'll see a listing of all the commands, but the one that we are going to use is create project, which will create not only a Shopware 6 installation, but also the whole file structure and the needed Docker containers. So let me just type in swdc, create project. Let's just call it swdc in swdc in a nutshell. And then we get this fancy terminal UI to decide what you want to build. For today, we're using a setup that's built on the development template, which we are kind of phasing out, but you'll see more updates on that soon. And we're moving it all into a plain Shopware 6 platform repository, so that you have less setup to do and you can be freer in the kind of tools you want installed. So what we're now doing is we're selecting the development template, and this will now clone a Shopware development template with a Shopware repository, stuff like that, in the correct place in your file system. And there you'll be able then to change the code. And what it's doing now in the background is just creating the whole project, running migrations, minifying and bundling the JavaScript for the front end and for the administration, so the shop owner UI. And this will take quite a while. But in the meantime, let me show you a bit around. So, oh, sorry, wrong window. So, what are we trying to do today? Today, we are building the Shopware personal product plugin. This is a little demo thing that we built to show people some things about Shopware and how to extend it, stuff like this. But I have to warn you, I'm more of a backend developer, and so it looks accordingly. And also, this is more of a skeleton. So it already contains quite a bit of code, but we have some. I will show you the code that is. I will show the code that is still missing, and explain some of Shopware's features with it. To get started, let's have a look at our main plugin class. So the main plugin class is the starting point of your plugin. Shopware plugins in general have two properties as an extension system, and one of them is they are Symfony bundles. So if we follow the inheritance chain upwards, so our plugin is extending the generalized Shopware plugin, which then extends the Symfony bundle. Why aren't we using bundles directly? Because the plugin also provides us with some lifetime methods. So we can run our logic when the user installs or updates or uninstalls our plugin, which can't be done with a bundle. So let's just get back to our main plugin class and have a look how our build environment is going. So let me just switch to this one, and it's still running, which isn't a problem because, as with any good cooking show, I've already had something prepared for that case. So let's just hit Control-C, kill it all, and we can just run with our so-called boost day instance, which I am currently in. And this instance is already a fully built Shopware 6. So what you would see when the swc command has completely run would be that you'd go to the name of your project, in our case boostday.dev.localhost, and there we see a fully initialized demo shop. So it has some test products, it has the Symfony dev mode enabled, and a fully migrated database. From here on, we can install our plugin. There are two ways for it. We could do the hacker way and use the terminal. So let me just increase the size a bit for you. Okay, and then we can run swdc again, and then use the console command. Console in this case is not an alias for a like Unix shell or Unix terminal, but for the Symfony console command that you find in most Symfony products under bin console. And then we type in the name of our project, which is called boostday, and there we can run our. Or let me just show you what happens if we run it like this. What happens is a Shopware CLI container will be started, and then is able to run the Symfony console command in the Shopware context. Here we see all the different commands that you can use to control Shopware from the shell itself. So this is the stuff you need to get to know if you want to set up and manage a server setup with Shopware on it. But a lot of it is also just standard Symfony stuff. And today we're going to use the plugin namespace, which also has some commands to create plugins and to install them, as well as to just refresh Shopware's model of the plugins of the plugin folder. So for that, that was correct. We'll use plugin refresh. And here we see we already got our plugin, the Shopware personal product thing, and it's not installed and not active. These are two different states because sometimes you don't want to change the database setup. So this is what is happening when it's installed. We're changing the database setup, but we want to keep it, but we do want to disable all its active functionality. And this is what active does. It prohibits the services of the plugin, so the standard Symfony services, to be loaded into the dependency injection container. But we won't install it right now, because let's first have a look at our activation method. So again, this is the main class of our plugin. And what we have here is a method that handles everything that happens once a plugin is activated. So this is just the life cycle, or one event in the life cycle of a plugin. And the first thing that you might notice is that we are using contexts. So context is like a bit of a tricky term, because for one, it's very clear what it does, while at the same time not being clear at all. And lots of different programming languages, lots of frameworks have the idea of a context, and it means something subtly different in each of them. In our Shopware context, in our Shopware world, the context is an object that contains all the information about the origin of a certain run of executions. So in this case, we have the origin of our code is a plugin installation, or more precisely, a plugin activation. And as such, we'll get a context that is built according to this event, and more importantly, contains things like internationalization and currencies, stuff like that. So the first thing we want to do is we want to get our custom field repository. For this, we're doing something a bit naughty, which is to get the container and then get a custom field repository there. But this is just for demonstration purposes, so I have it a bit more condensed. All right. And this repository is really what you would expect of a repository. Shopware itself has its own database abstraction layer called the DAL, so DAL. And this abstraction layer manages to interface with the database while still concerning itself only with entities. Stuff like, for example, orders, products, pictures, things like these. And what we're doing here is we're getting the repository that provides us with custom fields. Custom fields Custom fields are our way to, let's say, easily extend Shopware entities. Because all entities in Shopware do contain an extra property. And this property are the custom fields. Those are just schemaless JSON blobs that contain additional information that either the user wants to add to an entity, or that maybe a plugin wants to add to an entity. So, for example, you can go under settings in the administration UI system and then select custom fields there. And you can create whole sets of custom fields. So for our custom field set custom clothing, we are at stuff like number fields, checkboxes, things like these, that also then are able to be rendered in the UI of our product detail pages. So if we just go here and then scroll down, I'm just missing it. Maybe we can cut this.
Sure.
Okay. So again, these are ways to customize. Oh, wait. Just let me get back. So custom piece loading. Yeah. So these are ways to customize entities in Shopware without actually needing to know how to code, or maybe not being so certain what the complete schema of the data you're using is. So let's get back to the coding side of it. The first thing we're doing, our activation thing, once we've got the repo, is to check if we've already added those custom fields. This is more or less just a little comfort function for this test plugin, so we don't get any errors once we try and add the same custom field several times. What is the first thing that I want to show you here is how you actually write data to the database through our repositories. For this, we'll just use the repository, call its create method, and then we'll have an array containing our data, and we give it the activation context. So if you see this, you might ask yourself now, what's in this array? And in this array will be the data we want to write. And so let's just get started with our first entity, which again is also a associative array, where we will provide a name for our custom field, and we'll assign it our first name. And to keep it easier for our purposes here, we already have constants for these names, while you see in a bit, so it's easier for us to access the data again later. So our first custom field is a switch if this product is actually affected by our by our plugin. So we'll just give it. So we'll just give it our name, and then we can also specify a type. And this would then be custom field types, and we can pick a bool type. Why am I doing this if I set it schemaless? Because the UI needs to know the type of the variable that we're setting. Just some PHP stand errors. And these types are necessary to render the UI and to show the user the correct type of UI element for them to interact with our fields. And that's basically it. So let's just add one, so you'll get the hang. So we'll all get the hang of it, which is again just setting the name. This time our canvas X, and as a type, we'll use a custom field type. No, not float. Come on, we'll use an int. Now you might be asking, what are we even trying to do? And what we're trying to do is to build a product that the customer in our store can add an image to. So let's just say we have, for example, a shop that sells t-shirts or mugs that are customizable. And we want our users to have the ability to upload a picture so that our workshop can then print those images on the items we want to sell. And for that, we need the idea of where to put the image on the product. This is the information we're currently adding. And for that, we will need to know if this is even possible with the current product and where to put the image. And our X and Y coordinates you see up there are defining the rectangle where the image can be put. Now, of course, we could do this way more complicated, but as a quick introduction, I think just having a good old rectangle is enough. Let's just add the last ones now. This is not that much. So again, product canvas x1, and then, well, forgot the type there. Okay, so I'll just change the X here to a Y. Then Y0. Then come on. Okay, and now we have defined our rectangle with 2 points, one on the upper left corner, one on the lower right corner, and these 2 points span our rectangle where the image will be rendered. Okay, so now we can install and activate our plugin. For that, let's just switch back to our administration, where we will go under come on, here you go, where we will install our plugin and then activate it. It takes a while because it has to rebuild the whole Symfony container, and I was too fast with clicking it. So now it worked. Again, the thing is why it takes so long is because you have to build the whole Symfony service container once you add a bundle on the runtime, which we are doing with enabling a plugin. Okay, so let's just look at products and see if we can find our changes. Yes and no. We do have a little button here, but it doesn't really do anything. Why is that? Because I also want to show you a bit how we can change how the administration, the shop owner UI works. For that, let's just head back into the code. Under resources, app administration, we have the source code of our administration components. This is mainly dependent on a main.js. And in this main.js, we will include all the components and extensions that we are trying to put into the administration. So this is like the starting point of your admin changes. And to get started, we'll just have a little look here. Okay, and it's under extension. Nope, it's not that one. Yeah, extension, because we want to extend the product detail base, which is this thing, this page. And so we go into our index.js and we'll see nothing much happens here. Okay. In this index.js, what we're doing is we're telling Shopware through the component module to override the standard Shopware product detail base with our own. And what do we want to override? We want to override the template. So this template here is empty, and we'll just write basically a new Twig block, because our administration is built on two technologies, one of which is Vue, which we separated in like the code itself and the templates. So we have separated concerns to enable plugins to hang into or to hook into the components themselves, so we can change them and inherit them. And so let's just create a block called SW product detail base. What? Okay, and then we need to get into our general first info card. So just call it basic. Card, exactly like that. And then we, of course, need to close the block for those of you who are familiar with Twig.js. And last but not least, we need to add a new card. So a card in Shopware is like this element here. And we will just create a new SW card for that. Give it a title, which is, let me just copy paste it from my notes because I'm quite tired of typing it. We initialize it with a loading state. So is loading is just to show you a little spinner for everything to work out correctly. In that thing, we want to show our custom component, which in this case is the personal product canvas. This is where we will configure our product to work as we expected and to use the custom fields to save the data about where to put the images. And for that, I'll just use my magic knowledge of the future and use the, oh, not that one. That's a product canvas, come on. No. Still. Like this. And then we need to definitely call our parent function, so the rest of the template does not get ignored by Twig. So, okay. Let's have a look in our personal product canvas. The personal product canvas, on one hand, is the UI element. We need to show a canvas for all our stuff, so that once a product is actually a customizable product, we can show the user a more custom UI element to change the things. But to see our changes, we need to do one more thing, and this is bundle our bundle our administration again. But because it would be quite annoying to always build the admin again and again and again, we also provided commands to start a hot reloading module. So we can use admin watch. And then we see here under this address, a service gets started that continuously rebuilds the administration. If we now switch to 3, yes, exactly. It takes a while because right now it's still bundling. Yeah, it took a bit. Oh, and we also, what is quite important is you need to check that it injected your plugin. But because the plugin is installed and activated, the watcher itself will notice that you have the plugin there and will also watch those files. Maybe I need to force it to reload. Ah, there it is. I was just impatient. So just our default login data, which is admin with password of Shopware. So now if we go to products, we should see our canvas pop up. Yes, it works. So this is our canvas where we can define the place where the custom image should be given. So let me just click on one point, which sets the first coordinates, and then click on the second, which sets the second coordinates, and therefore also defines the width and the height. So let's just save it. And it worked. Now our product Ergonomic Wooden Devilet has a customizable cover image. So where did we get the image from? The image was already assigned to the product and already marked as a say cover image. So, but what is the actual canvas doing? Let's just have a look at this before we go to the storefront to try it out. So the first thing that we'll see is in this component that this component is not extended but registered. So we're creating a new view component. And this component contains our template, which again is our twig file that contains all the JavaScript canvas information and the elements for that. Then we have our data, which is like the data the component gets created with. So this is its default state. And then we use our map state and map getters helper functions basically to create so-called computed functions. These are used by Vue to automatically move changes through the stack so that only the changed UI components actually need to be re-rendered. And for that, we of course need to map the product, which is the whole deal of a product detail page, and we need to map the getters. In this case, is if it's loading. Then we check if it's customizable, and for this, you see our data abstraction layer does just or maps the custom fields from the database into the product entities themselves, so we can access them. And again, here we can just check if the product customizable value exists, and if it exists, if it's true or false. And then we have some helper functions for the canvas X and Y points, because again, here we need to go a bit deeper into the custom field JSON object itself. So this is basically how this canvas works. To then save it, we'll just use the general save button. It will also persist the custom field values, basically. Okay, so next thing is, let's have a look at the storefront and copy paste the name because nobody can remember that. And if we now search for ergonomic modern develop, come on. Oh yeah, that's the problem with auto-generated data. There's quite a lot of it. Okay, and as you can see now, we have here our storefront changes. So I already had the, already took the personal freedom to choose some UI components for it to already get a bit there. And now we want to fetch a new picture. And we click that and, oh no, it's broken. Why is it broken? Because this is the point where I tell you how you change backend services in Shopware. So for this we'll go into our service folder. Shopware itself is built on Symfony, and as such, all the different customization of the system is done through services and service decoration. So let's have a look at our services, which is as a standard basically under the config namespace. And here we have our services XML. And we see we create a product controller, a personal image definition, an image service, and we extend the product entity. Now, what is this extension? This extension is to save an image to the product. Because not only do we need the information of where to place the image, but we also need the information what kind of image a user uploaded. And this is a good chance to show you our extension system for entities. Because the thing is that with the custom fields, you have like more ad hoc UI enabled changes. With the entity extensions, you are building or you are connecting your data model that you built in during your, or with your migrations. You just weave it into the Shopware standard data model. This you do by extending already existing entities like the product with new fields. And in our case, this field is an association between between the products that are generally available in Shopware and a new entity that's called a personal image. And this class here is the definition of that entity. And this entity got several fields like an ID, which is kind of obvious. It's got a URL, which is where the image will come from. And it got some foreign key fields. Oh yeah, and not just some foreign key fields, but the foreign key field to connect to the product itself. So like the reverse of the product association. And also another association field to have a hydrated association. Because this is one of the things that the database abstraction layer does. It does not fetch all associated entities every time you ask for one. You have to tell it to get those associated entities explicitly. So what is missing in our example is the service that does actually guess the image. Oh, sorry, that is the image guesser, no T. Yes, that actually guesses the image and provides our product with a new entity of that type. Why have we built it this way? This is to show you how you can interface with the database abstraction layer in a reading sense. So as you've already seen, the writing sense is more like plain associative arrays. This is done because our database abstraction layer explicitly exposes all the adjacent data or all the entities through API endpoints automatically. So you're writing JSON to the API and it will then get persisted after some integrity checks. This has the ability to work without so much context. So when you're writing, you already kind of know the context in which you're operating. Whereas when you're reading, you want some extra context. You need to have to make decisions, and so need a richer object model, basically. And so, as you can see here, we're using proper constructor injection to get the repositories. And the first thing we'll do is to search for a product. So for that, I will use our product repository, and then search for something. So what does the search need? The search needs a criteria object. What is the criteria object? The criteria object is a object-oriented an object-oriented representation of an SQL query. And not just necessarily an SQL query, but our abstraction layer can also interface with Elasticsearch. So it can also model Elasticsearch queries. And what am I doing here? That makes no sense. We need to create a new criteria object with just nothing in it. Oh, excuse me, with a very important thing in it. And that is the product ID itself. So why are we adding the product ID? Because the criteria object got like two modes of operation. One of those modes is directly hydrate a product and directly hydrate entities. This is what we're using right now. The other thing is to search for certain entities. And because we already got the product ID here, we will directly hydrate an entity. So the database abstraction layer will go to the database and ask for exactly that product, and then fill a product collection and the entities in that product collection with the data associated with that ID. So we're at the criteria, and then we pass it the sales channel context, which again, we need to get a context. What this does is, again, we are accessing the data through the storefront, which means we get a context that knows that it comes from the storefront and the selected currencies, selected users, sessions, stuff like that. And we need to tell our repository that, so that it can just hydrate the data we need in the correct languages with the correct currencies, stuff like that. All right. And then we need to fetch
issues?
Yeah, I'm just looking for the thing and I'm just keeping quiet, so it's easier to cut later.
Okay.
Oh, I haven't scrolled my notes down far enough. Yeah, that explains it. Okay, so let's use the data we get from the search to then create a new random image from it. So our product itself, or this is, let's just say this is our result. This is our result, and this result is what you get back from the repository itself. If there's any proper failure, you'll get an exception. but what might happen is that the product with this ID is not existing. And so to get our product, we have to ask the result to get us our first product. So just first. Why can I just access our first product? Because I'm sure that right now I'm at a position where there weren't any writes during the request to products. And so if I get an ID from the front end correctly, there should be a product there that is accessible. And this is then our product. What do we do now? We need to get the width and the height of our customizable canvas so that we can fetch an image for this or for the fitting size. So let's get the width. And for that, I'm again using a bit of object-oriented magic. Let's just call it clean code to put it in another function, because I have a function that says get the personal image width. And for that, we're passing it the product. And I also have the ability to do the same thing with the height. What are these two functions doing? These two functions are accessing the custom fields. So as you can see, you can get the custom fields, and then we traverse the custom fields here, make some null checks, and then just subtract the x and y coordinates so we can get the height and the width of it. But with the height and the width, we can then get a URL from our image guesser. Which is for the people that don't currently have any URL to put into their product, but just want something random. And here we'll provide a width and a height, like so. And then what we can do then is get an entity with that image URL. So let's just call this. And again, we need the context here. So the method's name is not that speaking as I just remembered, but what this does is it will try and find an already existing image for this product, and then move this or move the image that's stored under the image URL there. So for that, as you can see, we're doing a reading access on the image repository, which is where all the media items are stored. And we say we just want to fetch one, want to add a filter so we know that the product ID fits. And this is all there to create our, or to find if there is already an existing custom image for our product that should be rendered in the canvas. If there already is one, we'll just use it, and the guessing of the image has no impact. But if this null check fails, we will proceed to create a new image, which you've already saw is by providing an associative array with the relevant data, and then just persisting it. After that, we create an entity, so the rest of our stack then knows what to do. And so now with our personal product view registered, we now need to rebuild the storefront. which we'll do just by Storefront build. Waiting a short moment. And switch to our browser. And here we have our viewer with the area marked for insertion for our picture. Again, I'm more of a backend guy, so please excuse the programmer graphics here. We're fetching a new picture, and as you can see, this picture is now put on the product, and once we add it to the shopping cart, it is also saved there. So, there, it's also saved there. And yeah, that's basically all I wanted to show you, which is a bit chaotic, but hopefully still coherent walkthrough how to create a plugin, especially one where you need to do a lot of front-end stuff if you're a backend guy, and to give you an idea of how the systems around Shopware work and how we can extend it. Thank you.